come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mandy, would you please call the roll?
DeYoung.
Here.
Butler.
Here.
Carlstone.
Here.
Hopkins. Hopkins. You will be joining us. We'll get him ongoing.
I heard him a little while ago.
Dan Stryland.
Here.
And Graver versus.
Okay. The City Council has adopted the Code of Civility. As elected officials, we pledge to promote civility through extending respect to others, listening to understand, disagreeing without disrespect, engaging collaboratively, and speaking up to address incivility. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and broadcast from Pella TV, so anyone who wishes to speak to council, please come to the podium and speak into that microphone so that those listening at home can hear your comments and see you on camera. Can I get a motion for approval of the tentative agenda?
So moved.
Support. DeYoung, Van Strylen, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Dan Stryland.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. This time we have an opportunity for anyone to address council regarding any agenda item. If you want to do that, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
John Bandstra, rural Mahaska County. Tonight on agenda item I2, you're going to discuss the 2080 agreement for a revised agreement for the airport. Of great concern is section 2, because just a week ago, last meeting, you said you were going to took action to support the current airport. Section 2 of this new agreement establishes a subdivision. When I asked the Mahaska County supervisors what their thoughts are on subdivisions, political subdivisions, they instantly said taxes. And from there the question was raised, does this SCRAA board even meet the criteria to qualify as a political subdivision? Let's just for a moment assume it does. Is the city of Pella willing to provide police protection for the subdivision? Are they going to do maintenance, like keep open the roads with rock, snow removal, or whatever is required? This agreement also retains the right to sue or be sued. If you remember correctly, part of this came about because Mahaska County was sued for leaving this 2080 agreement and won in Iowa Supreme Court. This cost the cities and the counties much money. Are you willing to do this and say, for example, you decide to leave this 2080 agreement, are you willing to be sued by the very entity you created? Think seriously about that section of this agreement. If you do decide with this agreement, another thing that was changed in here, most likely from the Iowa Public Information Board case that was brought against the SCRAA, is the fact that you have one person to set the agenda. Can this cause a problem? I'm here to assure you that when I sat on the board, it did cause a problem, because that person has been chairman for all but 2 years of the 2080 agreement. He does not listen, as in the such last airport meeting, he stated that even though the property acquisition was paused, the airport project itself was not paused. 3 of you were at that meeting. None of you raised a concern or any kind of a judgment. It is often said that a way to know a person's character is to put them in a position of power. What does your position here on the council say about you and the actions you take? Thank you very much.
Is it okay, I know that the public forum is, the first one's for agenda items. We've got a bunch of kids here that would like to speak, but they need to go to bed. Is it okay if they speak in this public forum instead of the one at the end of the meeting?
What are we speaking about,
The soccer complex.
which isn't on the agenda?
I know it was, we were told that it was, there was a memo that went out and they would speak about it in the one at the end of the meeting, but that's why I'm asking for permission.
Being they're kids, I'll say, I'll.
Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm a kid who lives next to the soccer complex. I'm here to talk about why turning those soccer fields into houses would be a problem for me and my buddies. In the area in which we live, First of all, those soccer fields are super important to me and my friends. Some days after school, we race like the wind to the soccer fields on our bikes to kick the ball around, show off our incredible, or let's be honest, questionable soccer skills, and try to score goals. If we lose those fields, not only would we lose our top secret hangout spot, but we'd also have nowhere to work on our impressive dives when almost scoring. It would be tragic. A horror story where the heroes don't have a field to play in and instead have to battle for it. Yikes. Now imagine us all sitting at home watching paint dry instead of laughing and running around. You know, I mean, that sounds like a fun killer, even worse than when your friend accidentally kicks the ball into the mud. We need those fields to keep our spirits high and our legs moving. And speaking of houses, have you noticed the new ones nearby that are just sitting there like they're waiting for an invite to a party? If they haven't sold yet, why build more? It's like trying to sell someone a mystery novel when they're only interested in comic books. Instead of filling the world with more houses, let's use our land wisely and keep our fields, where we can channel our inner Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. Personally, I'm a Ronaldo fan. Now, some folks might think adding new houses is a brilliant idea, but let's be real. We need fun places to play too. Parks and soccer fields are essential for kids to stay active, for us to show off our not so impressive yet totally enthusiastic headers. And some days we could just go to a park, but there's not always time to go and drive to the nearest park. And we're not always allowed to ride bikes into town. So I hope the council will hear our cries and keep the soccer fields open for play instead of putting the houses on them. Together we can make our neighborhood a fun place for everyone, and only if we have the space to be awesome. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts. I hope you see how much those soccer fields mean to us kids and the whole community. Now let's get out there and kick some grass.
Okay, anyone else?
That's awesome that you're willing to speak. That takes a lot of courage, so thank you. Alicia Helm of Oski. Tonight you intend to discuss the 2080. It raises some questions, especially concerning eminent domain. With Mahaska County out of the agreement, you lost your eminent domain powers unless you are now classifying the airport as a political subdivision. That's just scary business. Also, the fact that you discussed suing Mahaska County for damages. How is that going to work for you? Let's be clear, Mahaska County has been sued 8 times and has won all 8 of those lawsuits. And you have a 50-50 chance of winning, and the probability of you winning is slim to none. This costly project just needs to go away so you can focus more on projects closer to home. People have said no, and yet almost 25 years later, here we are still fighting to stop something the people have long been saying no to. Oskaloosa has a home rule charter where citizens could petition their government for a redress of grievances. It wouldn't be too hard to put a petition to the city to put it on the ballot and to put a stop to this once and for all. The best situation when it is time to vote would be to leave, cut your losses, and focus your energy on fixing your airport, which fits all your needs.
Hello, Nick Ryan, City of Oskaloosa. I've been helping to push back against the SCRAA since about 2008. And my question at this point is, how long is long enough? The time has come for both cities, frankly, but especially the city of Pella to get out of the SCRAA. I am here to tell you that as long as the property rights, as long as this thing continues to threaten the property rights of our friends and neighbors, we're gonna continue to fight back against it. Not just for years, but for generations if necessary. We will not go quietly into the night. We will not back down. This fight will continue as long as the SCRAA does. Please show bold, courageous leadership, do the right thing, and put an end to this once and for all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Island, DeYoung, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins.
yes,
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6775, entitled Resolution Approving, Ordering the Preparation of Plans and Specifications, Form of Contract, Notice of Hearing, and Notice of Letting, setting date for public hearing, authorizing the taking of bids, and authorizing bid opening for the 609 East First Street building demolition project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. For those in attendance and those watching at home at Pella Fiber, I'd like to direct your attention to the Vacant Board for a brief presentation on this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, what this resolution would do is approve the plans and specifications for the demolition of the former Second Christian Reformed Church property that is owned by the city of Pella. And what we have up here is a picture of the church property of the church itself, and also the red highlighted area is the property that is talked about in the demolition here. Now, as far as the opinion of probable cost that we have this evening from our engineering firm, which is Mainstream Kim, they're estimating the cost to be roughly $425,000, and the proposed funding source for this project is a general obligation bond. Now, if council were to approve this resolution, it really establishes critical dates for the project. The first one would be is we're planning on holding a bid letting for the project on December 11th. If we do receive, actually with everything after that, we will be presenting those bids to council's consideration on December 17th. And if council were to proceed with the construction contract or a demolition contract on this project, we're hoping to get this project completed by June 30th of next year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I believe that concludes the staff presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer the questions the Mayor or council may have on this item.
All right, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Butler, Carlstone, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins,
yes,
Dan Stryland,
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes. Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6776, entitled Resolution Approving and Authorizing Execution of a Consent to Second Partial Assignment Assumption of an Agreement for Private Development from Pella Entertainment Group LLC to PCD Entertainment LLC. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. As Mayor DeWart stated, what we have here this evening is a consent approval for a partial assignment of the development agreement from Pella Entertainment to PCD Entertainment. Now, this request comes to us this evening. PCD Entertainment has recently purchased the former Smash Park, the venue that we have pictured up here. As council is aware, for those in attendance and watching at home, his background on this, originally we approved a development agreement with RDP Holdings in 2021. Now, under the terms of the agreement, RDP can assign its rights and obligations subject to council approval. That's what we're considering here this evening. So let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, if council were to approve this resolution, all the rights and obligations under the development agreement would be assigned to PCD Entertainment. Now, one of the key things to keep in mind in the event of a default on the building, on their operations, both RDP Holdings and PCD Entertainment would still have obligations in the event of a default as well. So while our original development agreement was with RDP, the best way to look at it is in the event of a default, they're still going to be responsible for the development out there as well. In addition, PCD Entertainment would be as well. Now, as far as PCD's immediate plans, they plan on opening up the pickleball side of the facility as soon as possible. And they're also planning an enhanced food service menu for the sports bar restaurant. There's other amenities that they are proposing and that are under consideration as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, staff's reviewed proposed consent agreement along with the city's legal counsel, and we're recommending approval this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Support.
DeYoung, Carl Stone, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to ordinance number 1053, entitled an ordinance providing that general property tax levied and collected each year on all property located within the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Area in the city of Pella, County of Marion, state of Iowa, by and for the benefit of the state of Iowa, city of Pella, County of Marion, Pella Community School District, and other taxing districts be paid to a special fund for payment of principal and interest on loans, monies advanced to, and indebtedness, including bonds issued or to be issued, incurred by the city in connection with the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Area, the Prairie Ridge West Urban Renewal Area Plan, and this is the second reading. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this on the side, and I'll try to be brief on the side. What we're proposing this evening with this ordinance is that we'd set up a special area for our proposed new housing subdivision in the city of Pella. As council is aware, for those in attendance, a little bit of background on this. On November 5th, we approved the development agreement for this particular subdivision, which is proposed to have 90 houses. There are new houses that would be constructed. These would be very similar houses to those that are in the original Prairie Ridge development. And just to orientate everyone, Highway G28 is located right here. T15 is right here. The developer is proposing to extend Highway T15 up through the development up here as well. Now, overall, when we look at the new Greenfield site, one of the most items that needs to be addressed is usually the biggest obstacle to building new greenfields and additional housing is the cost of public infrastructure. In this case, it's $4.5 million, and what's being proposed with this development is over the next 15 years, the city would rebate approximately half the property taxes collected to the developer to reimburse them for the cost of this public infrastructure that would be installed and dedicated to the city of Pella. The mechanism to do that is establish an ordinance that has this area so we can collect the property taxes located in here. Now, when we talk about property taxes, these would be property taxes on new homes that are non-existent. If you were to drive out there, there's basically a farm field out there as well. So these would be new homes, so it would be the incremental value and the property taxes from the new homes that would be rebated back to the developer. But in order to do this, we need to approve an ordinance that allows us to collect the incremental property taxes generated in this area. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Move to place in second reading.
DeYoung? Carlstone? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on, can I get a motion for approval of the abstract of bills of number 2163?
Move to approve the issued warrants. Support.
DeYoung, Van Strylen, any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung,
Yes.
Van Strylen,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Carlstone,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Any council member have any other business you want addressed this evening?
Well, Jeanette's aware of this, and so is Mike, but I was a little disappointed when they changed the stripe on the band, on the tulip tower. It was always the color of the Dutch flags. We had red, white, blue, and they put the gold band in there, especially since the country of occupation, Germany has a gold band. So I was wondering, back in 2007, when the committee or whoever decided to, do the colors of the flag, and so I know Mike is looking into this and so on, but I was very disappointed in, the many relatives and people from the Netherlands, when they looked up there and saw the Dutch motto of the House of Orange, the J. Montendrai, and the motto, and then beside it the Dutch flag, and now suddenly we have a gold flag there instead of white. So I was personally disappointed with that, and I could do some quotes too about that. But anyway, I wasn't real happy with that change in the colors, and I expressed that with Jeanette too, and she said way back in 1968, back then it was kind of a off gold or whatever. So I was wondering when back in 2007 they decided to go with white, why now they put that gold band in there, which I think is going to be offensive to somebody with Dutch roots, or I know a lot of these old-time Hollanders aren't around anymore, but I wasn't real happy with that personally. So, that's my one.
Well, I know Jeanette said kind of an explanation of the color scheme. I'd be the last one to ask because I have no idea. I know she had a pretty good explanation about the color scheme when it was originally done and stuff.
Right, and I wonder why. I don't understand why. And I don't understand why in 2007 they decided to go with the Dutch flag colors. So anyway, enough said for the night.
Okay, anything
I'd like
else?
to wish the Mighty Dutch Pella High luck a couple of days, going in Cedar Falls, playing for state championship. Certainly a great group of student athletes and coaches. Makes us all proud, so good luck to the boys.
Jay McKinstry's last coaching game. Great guy.
Okay. Hopefully we'll be recognizing them for a state championship next meeting. All right, any member of the public have any other business that you would like to have addressed this evening? If so, please come to the microphone and state your name, address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Dwight Young, 2509 Schulte Straat. I'm glad to see that Broadway Street is open again now with nice bricks there, and it looks very nice. Unfortunately, it's got a couple of rough spots in it, and I wondered if anything was going to be done about those.
Is Denny here? Maybe Denny can, I don't know.
Brick streets are all rough.
Well, there are two particular places.
No, there is. There's a couple crosswalks we're not happy with, but, you know, that's the brick chatter, so.
Yeah, well, I'm not happy with those crosswalks either, so anything you could do, I'd certainly appreciate, because it's a distraction to the rest of the street. Thank you.
It's a good time then to also say we're sure we're slowing down without that light there now. Let's be careful with those kids crossing, especially when it's dark at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Well, if you did note, we got all the parking off the street. That has helped tremendously.
Denny,
Circle's thrilled with
can
that.
you go to Mike?
Yeah, we've got all the parking removed, and Central's actually gonna add some additions to a couple of their smaller parking lots to replace that, but that really cleaned it up. Now we don't have kids crossing between cars.
Okay, anything else?
Sarah Treff, of course, here about soccer. So I think you can see that there was a big following here for soccer because we were told it was going to be on the agenda again. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that we voted, we're going to fix it. We haven't seen those contracting things come back, but obviously we've been told that now the retention pond is not going to work, which just again now pushes the timeline out. And so I think for some of us, that's just, again, another point of frustration because we're not continuing to move it forward. So if I hadn't gone to the meeting on Friday of Community Services, we wouldn't have known that it was taken off because guess you can look at the agenda every day and see if it's on or off, but, so that's why we have soccer people here today, because we were told that it was gonna be on again. So, again, I just wanna encourage you to move it forward. We voted, the money's sitting there, so, we'd just like to see that continue to move forward so we're not losing more seasons as we go on.
Anything else?
Mike Vandermolen, 1054 150th Street, Pella. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for your time tonight. Wanted to speak a little bit about soccer while, I came into, I thought it was going to be on the agenda possibly. I know it's under possibly the staff updates. This last season, let me back up a little bit. I'm the head soccer coach at Pella Christian High School. I also coach at the club. I coach a 14U girls team at the club. This season has been one of the most frustrating seasons, not from a success standpoint on the field, but from a facility standpoint. So at the beginning of the year, we were told that we wouldn't be able to practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the sports park. We were told the soccer complex was going to be closed, and so we were limited on our practice times. And so I have 4 kids that also play at the soccer club. One of my children played on Wednesday nights. As you know, Wednesday nights is usually reserved for church night, so that was a little bit frustrating. Another one had a practice on Friday nights. As you know, Mr. Mayor, Friday nights are usually reserved in the fall for Friday night football. So that was also a little bit frustrating, but we managed. But from just a coaching standpoint, it's very difficult too. There's one full-size field at the sports park. We went from 2 full-size fields at the soccer complex, one with lights, to 1 field without lights. We have a 17U boys team, a 19U boys team, a 17U girls select team, a 19U select girls team, a 15U, 14U girls team, and I think there's a boys rec team. Those are all the teams that play on a full-size soccer field, and we have 1 field. As we kind of August gave way to September, gave way to October, we kind of lost our lighting. And so it's very difficult to be able to schedule practices. I know my team practiced at times at the at the sports park when we still had light. We also worked with the athletic, our activities directors at Pella High and at Pella Christian to schedule time for their turf. But we also had middle school football, 8th grade, or 7th grade, 6th or 8th grade football. So we had a battle against that. So at times we just went to Lincoln and played on their futsal court. So just from a coaching standpoint, it was very difficult. And I know you've got decisions in front of you. I know we had a plan that maybe that plan's going to be adjusted, but I just hope we have maybe a short-term plan where we can accommodate the club a little bit better, and then put our long-term plan in place and see it through. So that's kind of what I'm asking tonight. I think our soccer community kind of deserves that. It's something we need. We had, 10, 15 acres of soccer fields, and now we don't have any of those. And so I think we can do a little bit better. But I just urge you to stay on it and give us a solution. So thank you for your time.
I'll just bet now. Matt McCullough, 1295 Emerald Drive, Otley, Iowa. But I also work, kids go to school, go to church, and coach here. I don't coach soccer anymore, but I coached 5 years out there, and the complex has always been beautiful. So I'm kind of curious. I didn't get to see this memo that went out about it not working anymore, that this retention plans or the retention pond's not going to work anymore, and it's not going to be good enough for the facilities. But while I was out there for the 5 years coaching, the pond worked just fine. And it was a great complex. We have 10 fields out there. I think it was proposed to build 5 at the sports or at the new Parks and Rec facility. I think from the last city council meeting, we talked about that to build a new soccer facility out at the sports park. It was going to cost $2.6 million to do so. That was to build 5 fields. Like we just heard, there's 10 fields right now out at the current complex, and there's 2 full-size fields. There's 1 at the complex right now. So you're going to spend $5.2 million. It doesn't seem really fiscally responsible to do that, to try to build or to get rid of this asset that we have here in the city. And then we could maybe sell some of the land. I think we brought up is $1.3 million. I'm trying to remember what all these numbers were from our previous meeting, but then we talked about selling the land for 1.3 million. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And some more stuff with that. Oh, my wife also coaches. Currently they coach she plays on fields. I have 2 boys that are here tonight, 4th grade and 6th graders. The fields are dirt that we're playing on with the wrong size nets on it, with no lines. And this is the select teams that they're playing on, my 4th and 6th graders. So we're paying thousands of dollars for the kids to play on inner city fields. And this is Pella. We live here because it's a great community and has a lot of great features. And we have this fantastic asset out there. I don't understand why we're not getting it fixed. Even if we have to use city water to fill this pond, it's gonna be a lot cheaper than building a new complex somewhere else. I know I had a couple more, and I wrote down quite a bit of stuff. Oh, and I feel like if we save this money, we could use it towards the facility that we're trying to build. I forget what we were naming it, but the actual structure out at the sports complex, the rec arena. I think the plan looks fantastic out there. Why don't we use some of the money that we could save from the sports, from the soccer fields towards that? It's something I'd be interested in donating to. Because we need more fields as well as we need more practice facilities. I'm gonna take these 2 kids. We have 4th grade practice from 7 to 8 o'clock tonight for basketball. I'm gonna go coach that, and then immediately go to my 6th grade teams from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. And then get these kids home and try to get to bed by 10 o'clock. So the people that don't think that we don't need more fields and more facilities here, if we want our kids to go to bed at a decent time and continue our sports success that we've had this year here at Pella, I think they're a crucial part. So thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Okay, then we're gonna move into, we'll adjourn our regular meeting, move into our policy and planning. Number 1, a financial update, Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to get council up to speed. And what tonight's session is just an update on general fund finances. If you recall, last month we had an update from Brian Weaver, Finance Director, and since that time we've got a chance to reanalyze the general fund operations. But we wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page as we approach the 2026 budget, and that would be the fiscal year that starts on July 1st, 2025. And first of all, what we'd like to address is the projected budget deficit for this current fiscal year, which we believe will be $253,000 at this point in time. Now, as we discussed back last March, most of this, in fact, the $253,000 is really attributed to the operation of the Pella Community Ambulance. A little bit of background on this is we're in the 3rd year of operating the ambulance for the community. We took over the operations of the ambulance on July 1st, 2022, and it was out of necessity with this. The former nonprofit agency did a yeoman's job in serving the community for darn near 40 years on it. They ran into financial difficulties, and when the city took it over, it was out of necessity. So some of these items that we're talking about this evening, I would classify as still growing pains from this and learning the operations of the ambulance, particularly how it operates under a municipal entity. So what we have with this year and the current deficit that we have is $253,000. We believe that most of it is attributed to the revenue shortfalls and personnel costs associated with the ambulance. Now, when we talk about the budget next year, that would start on July 1st of next year, this $253,000 will not go away unless it's addressed on it. Our staff is actively looking at ways to eliminate that deficit this year, but right now, if you ask both Brian and I, we think that you're gonna have right around $250,000 deficit for the ambulance in this year. For next year, starting on July 1st, 2025, if it's not addressed, we believe the budget, when we meet next spring to talk about the budget, will be starting off with roughly a $368,000 deficit. Same issue as attributed to both revenue shortfalls and personnel costs associated with the ambulance. Now, I would also like to mention, when we talk about next year's budget, it's somewhat complicated because this will be, again, continuation of this new recent property tax legislation in the state of Iowa. And this is really year 2, and as Brian had asked, if you wanted to ask about things on the property tax formula, there's some uncertainty of how that's going to play out as far as the city's general fund tax base as well. So right now, our best guesstimate is that we'll be starting off at about a $368,000 shortfall to look at big picture on the ambulance, it's important to keep in mind that it's an essential service, first and foremost. But also secondly, when we talk about this projected deficit, most years it's not uncommon to start off with somewhat of a deficit for the city's general fund. It's been my experience, we've traditionally been in that $100,000 to $150,000 range on it. And it can be challenging balancing the budget at that level. This is considerably higher that we have, and really what that signals to me on it, just looking big picture strategy wise, first and foremost, when we talk about the users of the ambulance and contributing towards the ambulance, I believe that will be necessarily the same story that will continue to need to take place at some point in time. Those that use the ambulance will need to pay for the ambulance as well. We're talking about governmental entities that we serve on that as well. The second issue is when you look at the state's property tax legislation and really the legislation that caps the city's ability to raise our operating levy on this as well. What that really is signaling to us is that we're going to need to look at other revenue sources potentially, as well as operational efficiencies, not only for the city's ambulance department, but for all city departments as well. So this is somewhat of a paradigm shift for city governments, and we're not the only ones in the state of Iowa that are looking at issues such as this. But the point is we believe that it is still manageable, and we're actively working on that as well. The last thing I want to mention is when we talk about the projected preliminary budget deficit of $368,000 for next year, that's without adding any additional personnel on it as well. If you recall, we received a consultant's report, it was actually about a month ago, that attributed or recommended additional personnel. We're actively working on the staffing levels for the Pellegrini ambulance. We're in negotiations with Teller Regional Hospital on the transport agreement as well. So hopefully we'll have some information to share on both of those fronts here very soon. But we wanted to just make sure council's aware as we prepare for next year's budget where we're sitting and the steps that we're actively taking and trying to reduce the budget deficit that we're starting off with next year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I know that was a lot of information. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on this item.
Okay. Yes, John.
Are we getting any federal money to help run the ambulance? Is that coming, or where are we at on that?
Yes, there's a grant that's called the Ground Emergency Management Grant, GMET, Emergency Management Transportation Grant. What we have is this year is actually our first year that we've qualified for this, and what that is a partial federal reimbursement for the cost of the ambulance to serve Medicaid patients. We believe the net revenue achieved from that grant is roughly $72,000.
We'll get that this fiscal year.
Yep, we'll get this fiscal year. And unfortunately, when we talk about revenue shortfalls, and we mentioned that this, some of the growing pains that we're learning under this, is there was an overestimation this year of that grant amount. Now that we've corrected that on there, it's $75,000 we had when we originally took over the ambulance. We were forecasting that grant would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000 to $130,000. So, but it looks like from that side of things that the state did not fund. Well, actually, the federal share, the net federal share is $75,000. So we've made that adjustment, and that's accounted in our 253 and our 368 here as well.
Has there been any movement out in the county towards getting ambulance service declared an essential service?
Marion County is actually declared, actually we have two fronts when we talk about the ambulance. If you recall, our service territory extends significantly past the corporate limits of Pelham. I'll try to get to the west, it's Highway T14. We extend southernly past Lake, or actually down to the Des Moines River and Lake Red Rock, and over to the east, it's all the way over to the city of Layton. So we actually deal with two counties. Marion County is declared ambulance services as an essential service. There's a committee that the Board of Supervisors will be appointing at their next meeting. I believe that's going to be on November 26th, and they're going to be hopefully meeting soon in December. But with that, we had tentatively, if you recall, I thought that there may be a potential of an essential services election, or a referendum, that could take place next spring. That'll be something that will remain to be seen if they're still able to meet that. But yes, Marion County has taken proactive steps to declare ambulance as an essential service. Mahaska County, I do not believe, has done so.
This can't go on. We're nice people, but this can't go on.
the only step that's been taken so far is that supervisors have declared it an essential service. They have to appoint this committee, and then the committee will end up going back to the supervisors with a recommendation for ballot language and everything. So just as of note, there were 10 of these elections in the most recent election across the state of Iowa. There's a lot of counties that are doing the 6 past and 4 didn't to institute an essential services tax. So whatever comes out of that committee, who knows?
If it goes through a vote, there's no assurance of it.
No. It takes a 60% majority of all the county residents to pass it. For it to be
all the ones that voted, not of the residents.
Well, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, 60% vote, so, yeah, you have 60%. Sorry. No, you're right. That would be impossible to pass anything for that to be 60% of the eligible. Yes, 60% of those that vote.
Okay. Well, I think we need to stay on that and keep pressing forward. We need to promote it, do what we can. And it'll be interesting to see what the committee thinks the tax should be. Because nobody likes to pay another tax.
It can be up to 75 cents as the maximum. But that, that tax would tax everybody in Marion County. Right now, taxpayers of the city of Pella are subsidizing service to the outlying areas. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the discussion about the 2080 agreement for the SCRAA.
All right. Once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board for a presentation on this item. As Mayor Ward stated, tonight's discussion is on a proposed amendment to the city's 2080 agreement for the South Central Regional Airport. A little bit of background on it. The reason why this amendment is necessary is the intent of it is to reflect the Iowa Supreme Court ruling regarding the original 2080 agreement. If you recall, when the Supreme Court reviewed this, they reviewed the termination clause unconstitutional on it. So that triggered the subsequent withdrawal of Mahaska County from the agreement. So really, when we look at this proposed amendment, what we have here is reflection, adjustments to the termination provision, as well as removal of all references to Mahaska County in the agreement through that, besides the resuscitations on that as well. I would also like to state that the other purpose of this amendment is two things. One of them is for this project to proceed further on it, would take the approvals in the document for any type of land acquisition or construction of the airport. It would take written approval of both the Pella City Council and the Oskaloosa City Council. If you recall, early this fall, we received notice from the SCRA that they're unable to proceed with the project. And really what this does is it formally puts the project on hold pending the decision from or direction from the Federal Aviation Administration. The second reason this amendment is necessary is the South Central Regional Airport owns 368 acres of property. And depending on the direction we receive from the Federal Aviation Administration, if we have to liquidate the property or sell the property, it would be much easier to do so if the SCRA is currently intact on that as well. It's also important to keep in mind the comments on the legal entity of the agreement. I don't believe that section has been changed. That was in the original agreement as well. One of the key items for the SCRA when we talk about selling the property is the SCRA, there's outstanding grants, federal grants on this project in the 378 acres, and there's somewhere in the range of $5.5 to $6 million on it as well. In order to receive federal grants, you need to be a legal entity to do that as well. And so please keep that in mind. So if you wanted to look at it in a nutshell, we're reflecting the Iowa Supreme Court decision. We're also removing reference to Mahaska County. And we're also placing formally on hold the project. In order to proceed with the project, it would take separate written approval from the city of Pella and the city of Oskaloosa as well. So let's go ahead on the slide here. We'll talk about some of the other changes in the agreement. And we had the detailed changes of what changed in the agreement in the staff memo as well. But this is a summary of it. The first item that we have is currently under the agreement, the city of Pella has 3 representatives on the SCRA board and Oskaloosa has 2. This would, the change that's being proposed here is each of the cities would have 3 SCRA board representatives on it. We've also proposed to change the frequency of the meetings to semi-annual, and that's being reflective of the project being on hold status as well. The other change that we have here, since the project is on hold and is not actively proceeding, is financial audits would only be conducted upon the request of either city, or if the project were to proceed, or if it's required by the state of Iowa or the federal government, we will conduct an audit on that as well. What we have here is a previous article for committee, since the project is on hold, was deleted as well. And then it's also important to note, we talked about in the event that there's ever any operating expenditures or a need to subsidize the SCRA, what is currently was under the original 28E was for the construction expenses at the airport. That would be for anything that was covered by the FAA on this. That was proposed to be split 50-50 between the city of Oskaloosa and the city of Pella. The operational cost, if there was an operational subsidy of the airport, because based on projected traffic at the airport on this, our share of that was roughly about 60%, Oskaloosa's was 40%. We've changed that since Oskaloosa has equal representation, so if there's ever a need for an operational subsidy, then it'd be split equally 50-50 on that. I would say the rental property on the SCRA, particularly with the project being on hold, has been sufficient to cover any type of operating expenses, and there's minimal operating expenses right now in the SCRA as well. The last item that we have here, we want to make sure everyone understands before the project to proceed with additional land acquisition or construction, approval from both city councils would be required for proceeding with either one of these items. So the project would be officially on hold once this amendment is approved by the respective city councils. And the last question that we've had before, it's important to keep in mind the original 2080 agreement stated that all parties would use best efforts in proceeding with the regional airport. There's also damage provisions in there on there if the project ever got delayed on this as well, attributed to breaches. I want to make sure, and we've received questions at the staff level, if we approve this amendment, does this waive the city's right to seek damages for the delays associated with the regional airport expenses, additional expenses the city's incurred? The answer is no, the city does not waive our rights to do that, but that's a council decision. We just want to make sure everyone's aware of that as well. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes the staff presentation. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have about this item.
All right, I assume we'll be having the vote to approve these changes at their next meeting, or?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
Or what are you looking for direction?
What we want to make sure is that everyone is aware of the reasons why the change, why the amendment is necessary, and we're trying to answer any questions before we consider it for a formal vote consideration on that as well. It is important to note that we did have a legal firm that did draft the amended agreement. It has been reviewed by the city attorney as well for the cities as well. So with that, we're just trying to address any questions that council may have before we present this item for formal consideration.
Do you know where Oskaloosa is on the amendment?
I'm not sure when Oskaloosa is going to be discussing this item, but our plan is we will likely address our side of it in December, particularly if there's no follow-up from council. If there's follow-up or there's suggested changes, that could have caused a delay in the amendment.
Any questions, comments?
So I would say in a nutshell, this is the move to streamline the process of doing whatever the FAA tells us to do, to move, to sell the land and be done.
That's a good way to summarize things, council member Bob. So,
thank you.
I think at this point, we've approved paving the road out to the airport. I think we have the start of the process of a new long-term airport plan. So this isn't impeding anything that we're doing or talking about at our current airport. And yeah, the FAA will, I'm sure at some point, give us clear direction as to what to do. Okay, anything else? All right. off-road utility, UTV operations, city streets, roadways, and highways. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'm going to call on Chief McShahey to walk the city council through this item. So Chief, if you don't mind leading the discussion on this.
So as you remember, last time we talked about this, seeking direction, really just kind of making a decision one way or the other, whether we want to, the will of council, to allow UTVs. I was asked to provide some information that maybe some of the council members didn't have. So just as a recap, we brought this to council, well, it was brought to council in 2020, 2021. In 2020, we did a couple things. We did a survey not only here locally in Pella, but also in Knoxville, because that was our closest partner at the time, who already had an ordinance. At the kind of the same time, Oskaloosa was having the same discussion. And so it's important to note the Oskaloosa did their survey, that wasn't us. So when you see an Oskaloosa survey. Then the other thing that we did back in 2020 was we kind of did an informal survey across a lot of different cities, and you have that in your packet as well. And really we just kind of put together some columns and wanted to get a clearer vision on maybe what some of our neighbors were doing. So it's kind of important to remember when we talk about some of these things, such as age restrictions, those things are really kind of codified in Iowa code. You know, when cities looked at, you know, implementing UTV, golf cart, or whatever, they were really, a lot of those things were, again, mandated by code. One of the biggest things that we saw was restricted areas. So some cities had different needs, and so they looked at, you know, some of the streets that they maybe wanted the golf carts or UTVs on or didn't want them on. Also understand some of that is clarified in Iowa code as well. So if you look at our own golf cart program here, the council several years ago decided that they wanted them on some streets and not others. From my understanding of code, that is council's choice largely, but there are some streets where they're not going to be allowed. For example, 163. So provided you with the surveys, it is kind of important to remember too on the surveys, while it did give us a snapshot, and I don't know that there are true any aha moments in there, please understand the survey disallowed the same IP address to take the survey, but there was no sure way to say whether they came from Pella or in Connecticut, for example. So somewhat unscientific, but I think it did give a pretty good snapshot of kind of those pointed questions, which led to some decision making. Really, at the end of the day, it comes down, in my opinion, to just giving our officers clear direction on whether we're going to have UTVs in the city or not. I think if you look at the UTV platform, it is safer than a golf cart, but we haven't had any accidents or incidents which guides our decision from an enforcement standpoint. I will tell you that there's a lot of ambiguity on this, and it would be very helpful for my officers to have a clear understanding as to what the council wishes. So happy to answer any questions regarding the information that we gave you.
Well, I taught in safety class for a lot of years, and personally, I think the UTVs are probably safer than mopeds, especially the way, you know, personally.
Sure.
I would sure hate to see them banned.
Well, UTVs, you know, obviously are, you know, making some technological headway over the years. You know, most of the UTVs that you see now have most, if not all, the equipment that a regular vehicle has, and so that's nice to see. Turn signals, seat belts, better brakes, and so forth. You know, we have seen an uptick in UTV use in the city since the 2023 Iowa code change, which again, in my opinion, could have been written a little bit better to help guide some of the cities and the citizens as to the use.
discussed this with a number of people, just as a conversation. They don't own or operate UTVs, but they have no problem with it. Hasn't been a problem for them until it becomes a problem. They really don't care.
The biggest complaint my office receives is children who've been allowed to drive the golf cart, you know, probably from grandparents or, you know, something like that. I'm a grandparent too, so, but that's probably the biggest complaint. It's not necessarily a reckless complaint. But also understand a lot of those complaints are automatically governed under what we do as police. So, you know, reckless driving, OWI, you know, driving in the dark, and all that stuff.
On the big spreadsheet you gave from multiple other towns, they have things like age restrictions, licensed, insured. I think you had reviewed last time that would all be part of the requirements. Registration fees, and I think the survey passed that question specifically.
That was a little bit of a change there, Doctor. Back when that survey was done, some of these cities were charging an additional fee for a sticker. Iowa Code in 2023 took that ability away because they said if you're going to use it on the road, you have to be registered. And so you have to register through the state. So I think they looked at that as kind of a double tax issue. I'm not sure, but I think that's what the issue was. So cities are no longer allowed that extra revenue source of $25 or whatever it was they were charging.
It also helped, at least me, clarify golf cart, UTV, and ATV. There was some ambiguity in our discussion last time. I thought I kind of gathered that ATV would be like a four-wheeler, non-enclosed, with a scoop in front. Most people were allowing for snow clearance only.
Correct.
The idea being, you know, kind of that transition zones in towns or
Yes.
the long driveway.
Easiest way to think of an ATV is a straddled seat, and a UTV is a side-by-side.
So that was super helpful information. Thank you.
Okay, good.
And Mark, I think I heard you. I've obviously the people that are passionate about it for it, and I haven't heard a lot of negativity towards it. It was almost the regulations we set forth.
It's not an issue.
Yeah.
Till somebody gets killed.
Any concerns about primary streets, secondary streets? Do you have any from a policing standpoint?
You know, from my standpoint, you know, we're allowing golf carts on certain streets. If you're asking me what my thoughts are, I think if you relegate those same streets to UTV use, it makes it super clean, super simple. A lot easier for my folks to kind of understand what that enforcement snapshot looks like. And it also already falls within the Iowa Code parameters. So that would be my recommendation, is to keep them the same.
So, okay, so moving forward then, you guys are in support of, I'm sorry, you're gonna give us our options.
So, yeah, here, you know, your options are you know, pretty simple. My recommendation is, you know, give us a yes or no nod, and then we can come back with an ordinance revision. And probably most likely it would be just revising the existing golf cart to include some different language, very similar to what it says for the golf carts. The parameters are going to be pretty closely the same. There's going to be a few differences, but not much.
So the consensus I'm hearing is that for UTV use to kind of mirror the golf cart use in the city, and we're fine with that.
Yes.
Knoxville was the only city on the list that had that, but, so we just need to let them know what we want them to do, and then we'll pass it.
Is there a way to kind of review it in a set period of time? I mean, it's obviously if we coordinate it, it's going to have to be a process to de-ordinate it, and so.
There'll be an ordinance revision, if that's the direction the council wants, and I can work with my staff to do the ordinance revision and bring it back.
I'm much more comfortable with the UTVs being a lot more places than the golf carts. I have a beef with golf carts, not with UTVs.
So I would say staff on city streets.
Okay. Will do.
Same with on here.
Just one thing, are UTVs allowed on Washington Street?
Currently, UTVs are not allowed on any street in Pella.
Are golf carts allowed on Washington Street?
No.
They're there.
Like a UTV travels at speed fast enough to be on Washington Street.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have a problem with that personally. Especially with a mature adult driving. And we have quite a few of those, I think, in those things.
We'll bring back the ordinance, and then if there needs to be some
That's
further discussion.
I was a motorcycle guy.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. All right, last on the list, project update.
Hi, yes, Mr. Mayor, this is once again the interactive session of policy and planning where it's council's chance to ask or opportunity to ask the status of any project the city has. I wanted to share the items that are on city administration's list that are likely to be addressed in the month of December this year. If you recall, to start off with, we had a recent cost estimate or revised cost estimate for the memorial building upgrades to the memorial building. We also talked about potential alternative uses for the memorial building as well. We're planning on holding that session in December on it, as mentioned as well. City soccer complex, the staff has received bids from engineering firms for the irrigation system. We've also been looking at the irrigation pond as well, as it does need a new water line that would be needed to be extended to the pond as well. So we'll have some additional costs associated with the project. We intend to brief council on the status of the project. That should happen sometime in the month of December as well. In addition, we'll be talking about potential uses of the Waslon Conference Center. As council is aware, we've recently remodeled the conference center. It's a fabulous facility. We'll be talking about future uses of the facility as well. In addition, we have a little bit of cleanup work from our economic development policy. We'll have to be memorializing policy that's been probably in effect for a long time at the city, but we're hoping to have that in front of council for formal approval in the month of December. In addition, we have a potential repair project at the Mullen parking garage, and that's due to water infiltration down at the electrical rooms at the garage facility. We're going to be talking about a potential fix to that issue. That should occur sometime in the month of December. Chief McShane and staff have been actively working on the public safety radio system upgrade and dispatch council upgrade as well. That should be in the month of December. In addition, it's likely that we'll have the ambulance staffing plan as well as discussion of a potential agreement with Pella Regional Hospital for transports in the month of December. In addition, we've also had some improvements that are going to need to take place at the city's diesel plant that we'll be talking with council about as well. And we'll also probably have a preliminary update on the city's AMI grant. That's the Advanced Meter Infrastructure Grant that the city's recently received. In case you're not aware, we received a federal grant from the Department of Energy of over $1.5 million to assist us with that project. So we're hoping to get an update on that project as well. That's going to be a great project for the city of Pella. We'll also talk about the water utility update, particularly the issues with Jordan Well number 2. We'll be focusing on that to bring council up to speed on that. And then in addition, what we have scheduled for both probably December 3rd on a preliminary basis as well as December 17th is discussion of the city's long-term facility plan. Now, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that some of these items could potentially slide to January, because when you look at these items, these are all heavy-duty items on it as well. We'll try to keep on track with them, but it's possible that a few of them may need to slide to January. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's my update. Be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have on any of these projects, as well as any other projects that you're interested in.
Okay.
In light of soccer interest tonight, if we don't get to this till January, let's say, these teams have to practice in spring, what kind of timeline?
If you recall, when we approved and actually had informal direction to proceed with the project, we talked about 2025 being a construction year for the project, and so the irrigation system would be installed in 2025. There's also a period of time there where we need to grow grass and make other repairs to the fields as well. So we talked about soccer programs continuing at the city sports complex for 2025, and probably the play at the earliest would be 2026.
We heard a lot of questions about timelines.
Yeah. We'll try to address that when we bring this item up along with a revised timeline as well.
Want to make any other comment about Jordan Well number 2?
Excuse me?
Jordan Well number 2, do you have any other comments, or what's going on?
Is Denny still here with us? Okay. Okay, I guess I'm on the hot spot then. All right. Well, we're continuing to work with, and we anticipate we're going to have an engineering report on Jordan Well number 2 to address the iron, some issues that we've had on a pre-filter basis. So this is the issues that's causing some might say difficulties operating the plant before the Jordan water. And to get everyone up to speed, when we talk about the Jordan aquifer, we're talking about deep wells that feed the community. And we have 2 Jordan wells. They're both located approximately 2,200 feet below ground. We drill and we take the water from them, and we run them through high pressure screens at the city's water treatment plant. We've had issues with Jordan Well number 2 on some of the pre-filters, so this is before it even gets to the high pressure screens. It's been clogging up pre-filters, and it's been difficult for our operators to operate. So there's a chance, there's a possibility we may have to install additional filtration system on Jordan Well number 2 before it hits the screens to go through the pressure membranes on that. We're also going to be talking to, during a prelude to the 2026 budget on this, we're going to be talking about source water as well. If you recall, and some of the existing council members, when we approved the city's long-term water supply plan, we approved as far as the primary drinking water source for the city would be the Jordan Aquifer, and the Des Moines River would be used as a backup. And we also capitalized the possibility if we needed to incorporate or actually start up the lime softening plant again. The lime softening plant has not been in operation since the Jordan Well Aquifer has been tapped, or we've been using the reverse osmosis system that's located there. And that's been since 2017. So there's issues, potentially additional costs of bringing the lime softening plant on board. And what we've also looked at is the potential need to have another Jordan Well within the community along with another screen. So that's the prelude to the discussion that we're going to be having most likely on December 3rd on that. And Councilmember Butler, I don't know if you have additional questions that you'd like me to cover.
That's fine. I just wanted to hear some of it again. I guess I've heard some of it before. I just wanted to, thanks for the recap.
Okay, anything else? All right, then, do I have a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 388.9, Item 1, to discuss marketing, pricing strategies, or proprietary information of a city utility if its competitive position would require a public disclosure not required of potential or actual competitors, and if no public purpose would be served by such a disclosure.
So moved.
And Stryland DeYoung. All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Dan Stryland.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
Carlstone.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed, so we are going into closed session, and we have no other agenda items. There will be no motions coming out of the closed session, so we're gonna do it in here, so that means all of you have to leave.